I knew that the bad things and disappointments had to happen in order for the good and great things to happen. America wanted romance, so Melissa Gilbert had to give it to them. She begged Michael Landon to change the writing for Little House on the Prairie. She had never been kissed before she was 15. He knew it was wrong when he was 23. Still, they shot scene after scene while 100 people watched. In the dark, her mother stood there crying. People were angry and wrote letters. Both stars are now finally saying what everyone thought but wouldn't say. The real story behind their friendship on screen is much worse than anyone thought. Melissa Gilbert began her life with a broken heart before she even had a name. She was born in Los Angeles on May 8, 1964. Kathy Wood and David Darlington, who were her real parents, were getting married and already had 3 kids between them from previous marriages. They gave her up for adoption just one day after she was born. They said they couldn't pay for a 7th child. Melanie never stayed the night with them. She was taken in right away by Paul Gilbert, an actor and comic, and Barbara Crane, his dancer and actress wife. That moment of being alone with him will always be with her. Years later, in her book Prairie Tale, she wrote, "A big part of my life has been a lie." Paul Gilbert was more than a dad. He was everything to her. But on February 13, 1976, that world fell apart. Melissa learned that her dad had died of a stroke when she was only 11 years old. It made sense. He had been through one before, but the truth hurt a lot more. Paul Gilbert had killed himself. No one told her for decades. He had been a fighter pilot in World War II and was in constant terrible pain from the injuries he got. He was being cared for by the Veterans Administration. They tried to help him, but they couldn't. When Melissa, 44 years old, found out the truth, it broke her heart. She told Oprah that for weeks she had been barely able to do anything. She hired a private detective in the end to find out what really happened. She wanted to know. She had to figure out why the person who had kept her from being unwanted was now gone. Even though she was adopted, no one had told her the truth. She was born to be in show business. Barbara Crane, her foster mother, was the daughter of Harry Crane, who made The Honeymooners and came up with the idea of celebrity roasts to keep the Dean Martin show fresh. He had written for the Golden Globes, the Oscars, and even the Emmys. He was a big deal in the early days of TV, and that made the world Melissa would grow up in what it is today. Barbara also worked in the theater business. That meant Melissa grew up in a home where TVs, scripts, and red carpets were easy to get to. They were a normal part of her life. That Hollywood vibe went through the whole family. They adopted another child in 1967. His name was Jonathan Gilbert. After some time, in 1975, Barbara had a daughter named Sarah with her new husband, the lawyer Harold Ableys. In the end, Melissa, Jonathan, and Sarah were all big stars on TV. Melissa didn't become famous by accident, she worked for it. She was already in ads before she turned 5. One of the most well-known was in 1977 when she and Lauren Green were in an Alpo dog food ad. Green and Gilbert got along great, and in the ad she was talking about how proud she was that her dog Fluffy had won a blue ribbon. Melissa Gilbert walked into a room full of more than 500 hopeful girls when she was only 9 years old. She left with a part that would define her for the rest of her life. In early 1973, NBC was looking all over the country for the right kid to play Laura Les in a new pilot. Something happened when Melissa walked in and started her screen test with Michael Landon. He saw more than just a young girl. He saw his daughter on screen. He later said that her show was like magic. She was not pretending. Her name was Laura. Her life would never be the same again after that night at the Burbank studios. Why was that funny? Melissa had no idea who Landon was. He was famous for 14 years on Bonanza, but she had never seen it. So she didn't act nervous or try to impress him with praise when she tried out. She only acted it out. Landon had been looking for someone who was honest and didn't try too hard. She didn't think of him as famous. He looked like P. It was this easy bond between them that became the heart of Little House on the Prairie for the next 9 years. It felt like Melissa was in a TV show when she found out she got the part. Leslie Landon, one of her classmates, walked up to her with a big smile one day. The real daughter of Michael Landon, Leslie said, "My dad picked you." There was no phone call or studio announcement, it was just 2 girls in the halls of their school. After many years, those 2 girls would be back on set. In the last few seasons of the show, Leslie played schoolteacher Etta Plum. She shot the pilot in the beautiful hills of California in the summer of 1973. Over 17 million people watched it when it aired in March of the next year. That was really big. But even after that, she had to wait almost a year to find out if the show would lead to more episodes. That kind of waiting takes a long time for kids. But shooting started up again in June 1974, and the show Little House on the Prairie was born. It would run for 9 full seasons, showing family life, suffering, and life on the frontier. One moment decided her fate. She had to act out a scene where Laura says goodbye to her dog at her last tryout. It was hard, real tears and pain. Landon paid close attention, and by the end his eyes were teary. He was moved, which is something not many adult actors could do, let alone a kid. It was not practice. The method wasn't right. It was honest from the heart. He knew that day that she wasn't just pretending to be Laura Les. She was herself. From 10 to 19 years old, Melissa wasn't just pretending to be someone else. She grew up in front of the whole country. More than 20 million people watched each episode of the show at its peak. She was in America's living room every week. A lot of people saw her on TV lose her baby teeth, get taller, and go through puberty. That long of time, no child had ever been watched so closely. It wasn't just a show. The events were happening all over the country, one story at a time. While most kids rode their bikes or did their chores, Melissa was getting her camera ready for dawn and learning lines, but there was still school. She didn't go to a regular school. Instead, she learned on the set. To follow the rules set by the state, tutors would jump in between takes and teach quickly and effectively. It wasn't simple, but it worked. The child players were very close to each other. They were kids who lived in two worlds at the same time, class and fame. Melissa found time to play parts that showed she wasn't just good at one show, even though she had a lot going on. She played Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker in 1979 when she was only 15 years old. It was raw and moving, and it got her nominated for an Emmy. In another dramatic part the next year, she played Anne Frank, once more another nominee. It wasn't just cute kid parts. She did a great job with all of these tough young characters while she was still shooting Little House. The most crazy thing about Melissa's story isn't her fame or awards. That's how much she changed into Laura Les. The person did more than just show up on TV. Melanie took on some of Laura's beliefs, battles, and strength. She said working at Little House wasn't just a job. It was her youth, her family, and everything she knew. There was no clear line between who she was and who she played by the end of the show. The person helped her grow up. It was season 6 of Little House on the Prairie when Dean Butler was cast as Almanzo Wilder. He was 23 years old at the time. Melissa Gilbert was only 15 years old when she played Laura Ingalls. Now 8 years might not seem like a big change, but in 1979 it felt like a huge gap. Dean even said it was like the Grand Canyon for age gaps. For a show that aired during Family Hour and was known for telling clean stories, this pairing made people in the cast and fans alike scratch their heads. The girl was still in high school. Dean wasn't in college anymore. Even so, they were supposed to be together. There were romantic moments, closeness, and a first kiss on screen for millions of people to see. That choice the makers made caused tension and discomfort that didn't really go away. She didn't try to hide how she felt. She was filled with feeling when she first heard Dean was cast. She said it was a perfect storm of sadness, fear, anger, and sickness. She had hoped to act opposite someone about her age, someone who knew what it was like to be a kid. They brought in a man instead, a man with beard that she would probably kiss. That wasn't just acting though. It became real. Sweet 16 is the name of the show where Laura and Melissa both get their first kiss. It wasn't just her first kiss on camera. She had never kissed before. She hadn't been on any dates or done anything else to get ready for it. There was a film crew, lots of bright lights, and about 100 people who just stood there and watched. Dean Butler knew it wasn't right. He later said he was really scared. She was a little girl. It was hard for him. He knew that this kind of casting would never work in Hollywood today. It would be turned down right away. But it did happen back then. It was one of the most talked about parts of the show's history. What went on outside of the screen made it even harder. Barbara Abeles, Melissa's mother, stood behind the cameras and watched. Barbara began to cry as her daughter leaned in to kiss her. This wasn't a happy moment. It hurt a lot. Instead of growing up alone, her little girl was growing up on a set with a grown man in front of everyone. Dean had a clear memory of it. In his autobiography, Prairie Man, he wrote that Barbara had never liked the idea of him being hired. And when they kissed, she went from being upset to being crushed. He said she couldn't stand seeing me kiss her daughter. Melissa, on the other hand, did everything she could to avoid it. Michael Landon, who made the show, was begged to change scenes. She would ask, "Can't it just be a hug?" because she wanted to stay in her safety zone. But the stories didn't stop. Scene after scene, kiss after kiss. She had to play the part every time, even when she was sick, scared, or had never felt love in real life. And people watched noticed. Some liked the romance, while others thought it was horrible. One mother wrote to a newspaper and said the casting director should be burned at the stake for putting together a teenage girl and an adult guy. Dean Butler also got mail. Some fans said those scenes made them feel nervous, and they were right. In 1979, an article said that it would be the hardest part of the season. That's not because of the lines, but because of the truth. As far as roles go, Dean Butler may have the hardest one of the 1979-80 TV season. It said, he has to show viewers that it's okay for an adult man to love a teenage girl. Even though there was backlash, the episode was a huge hit. Sweet 16 got the most viewers on Nielsen, and was shown twice during primetime that summer. It became well known. After many years, TV Land would even give them a prize for the most memorable kiss in the history of TV. But how much did it cost?
a 15-year-old girl who was made to feel like an adult. In the dark, a mother was seen crying, an actor who felt very bad about himself. Scores were the most important thing in that business at the time. He was right when he said, "You just couldn't do it today." Good thing that Hollywood no longer treats young artists badly. Times and standards have changed. That change came too late for Melissa Gilbert, though. Her youth was shaped by a story she didn't write. On TV, Melissa Gilbert's life looked great, but things were going badly behind the scenes. Melissa was slowly becoming addicted to drugs while millions of people watched her as Laura Les on Little House on the Prairie. In her teens it began and quickly got worse. It was 2 full bottles of wine every night by the time she was an adult. That wasn't just drinking for fun. I had to stay alive. And she almost died. She passed out and fell asleep in her dog's bed one night while she had guests over for dinner. That's when she knew she had to change how she was living. But she didn't just drink to escape. Besides that, she used drugs. She felt lonely because of her fame, and the stress of being a kid star never went away. For a while the drugs made her feel no pain, but the damage was done all over her life. Her relationships got worse. Her parenting got worse. In the end, her own son begged her to stop drinking, which broke her heart. It hurt her more than anything else had before. It was the alarm she couldn't turn off. She joined Alcoholics Help the next day. The 12-step program saved her life. As she listened to other people tell their worst stories in those meetings, she finally felt less alone. In her 2009 book Prairie Tale, she admitted the truth about her addictions, failed relationships, and the mental damage her childhood in the public eye caused. But that wasn't the end of the pain. Melissa tried out for a part in Oliver Stone's movie The Doors in the early 1990s. For years she couldn't forget what happened next. Gilbert says Stone wanted to get even. She had said bad things about him in public before. Now he set her up at the interview. He told her he had just written a scene for her and gave it to her. It wasn't a real event. It was a trick. The lines were very clear. She had to get down on her knees and say, "Do me baby," over and over again. It made her feel bad. She was crying, and Stone looked at her coldly and said, "Good. That will make it better." The casting director had suddenly left, leaving her alone with Stone and another actor. She cried and ran out. She still thinks that the whole thing was planned as a punishment. Stone later said it wasn't true, but Gilbert never changed his mind. After that, she got married to Bo Brinkman. At first glance it looked like a Hollywood romance, but 6 weeks after meeting they were engaged and on their way to a terrible relationship. He hurt her feelings, drank too much, and cheated on her all the time. Their marriage, which lasted 6 years, slowly fell apart. Brinkman did more than cheat. He did it without any shame. He is said to have slept with Melissa's former Little House co-star Shannon Doherty, which was one of the worst betrayals. He used to look up to her and treat her like a big sister. She was now a part of her broken heart. She was only 19 years old at the time. Brinkman was about 40 years old. Melissa didn't think twice when she was asked what she'd say to Derry if she saw her again years later. She said, "I wouldn't say anything. I would hit her in the face." Even though that was bad, what happened next was much worse. The baby's cries woke Melissa up just 2 months after she had a C-section and gave birth to their son Dakota. She went downstairs to get a bottle warm. She almost lost it when she saw what was in the living room. Her husband was having sex with someone else on the couch. The TV gave the scene a dim glow. She thought for a moment that it had to be a dream, but it wasn't. He looked at her blankly and asked, "What are you looking at?" He didn't feel bad or say sorry. He was just cocky. She didn't scream. She wasn't sad. She went to the fridge, got the milk, heated it up, and then went back upstairs to feed their baby. The woman turned out to be a sex worker while her husband kept cheating on her right there on their couch. She was found by Brinkman on the late-night sex show The Robin Bird Show. When Melissa later confronted him, he said it was her fault. He told her she was wrong for not being ready to be sexual after surgery. It wasn't over yet. When the woman left, Brinkman stormed upstairs. He yelled, "What's your problem?" He tried to start a fight when she tried to keep things calm for their small child. He didn't stop when she told him she couldn't believe he'd let a hooker into their house. He said, "Yeah, what's your problem?" He told her she was selfish, blamed her for his job being held up, and emotionally hurt her. He was unavailable, so she told her mother about her pregnancy before telling him. For 3 days he didn't say a word to her. He didn't show up to their baby shower at all, because he was drinking too much.
Melanie Gilbert's life didn't just change. It had to take sharp turns, big jumps, and scary falls. Still, her story was very much about a real person. After 2 bad marriages and decades in the public eye, she found something she didn't expect when she was 48. Love. That person was named Timothy Busfield. There had been times when they worked together for more than 20 years, but never as more than co-workers. In late 2012, that changed. During the holidays, they said yes. The wedding took place at the San Isidro Ranch in Santa Barbara on April 24, 2013, and was very quiet and lovely. She wore a bright red gown without straps by Morgan Le Fay instead of white. Gilbert had 2 boys at the time. Busfield was married and had 3 kids of his own. They weren't beginning over. Their lives were coming together. Gilbert felt different this time though. Busfield gave her something new. Someone who really cared about her, believed in her, and pushed her forward. In 2018 they moved to New York's upper state. They now live and work together, away from the chaos of Hollywood. "Work together is my favorite thing in the world," she said. But Gilbert dove into the storm before he found peace. She was chosen to serve on the Screen Actors Guild Board of Directors in 2000. After only 1 year, she shocked everyone by becoming the 3rd woman to ever be chosen president of SAG. The race was very rough. She was up against Valerie Harper. Gilbert got 12,280 of the 27,630 votes that were cast. Harper got 10,692 votes. That's 45.3% to 39.4%. People who work in Hollywood were shocked. The union was split up when President William Daniels was in charge, which led to the biggest strike in Hollywood history, 6 months against advertising in the year 2000. Gilbert said she would get rid of the chaos, and she did. She won again in March 2002. This time out of 37,742 votes, she got 21,351, which is more than 50%. The number of votes cast hit a new high of 41.4%. She met with governors, mayors, and senators while she was president from 2001 to 2005. She fought hard for the rights of artists. She was born in 1948 and played Laura Les on TV. In December 2001, she became vice president of the AFL-CIO, making her one of the most important labor leaders in the United States. Then, just when people thought they knew her, she surprised them again. Gilbert said she was running for Congress on August 10, 2015 when she was 51 years old. That's not in California or New York. It's in Michigan's 8th District, which is a haven for Republicans. She had only lived there for 2 years. Right away there was reaction. The other team called her a tax cheat. They found that she owed the federal government $360,000 and the state of California $112,000. That is almost $500,000 in back taxes that haven't been paid. The things she said were to blame: a stalled job, the effects of the recession, and her divorce. She had a payment plan. The deal was good until May 24, 2016. That's when she suddenly pulled away, not because of politics but because she was in pain. In 2012, while she was dancing on Dancing with the Stars, she fell and hurt her head and neck. Later, a deck at her home in Studio City fell in. The wounds never got better. 2 bulging discs in her back meant she needed surgery, the doctors told her. Her right hand was no longer feeling anything. It hurt her arm a lot. Her neck hurt. There was no other Democrat on the ticket, so when she dropped out, her Republican opponent won. The race was over, but her fight wasn't. Gilbert kept going after change even after he left Congress. In 2002, she went to an event at the White House put on by First Lady Laura Bush to encourage everyone in the United States to read and write. Behind the scenes, she also talked to White House staff about copyright and production problems that were getting out of hand, which are big problems for American film workers. In SAG, she led important panels on affirmative action and the rights of young performers. She stood for being different. She stood up for child players and chose a side when things got political. She spoke out strongly in favor of Planned Parenthood during her 2016 campaign. She sent a tweet with "Idri stand with PP." She took part in Walk for Choice events. It was more than just a political stand. She and her brother were both adopted. Her support for abortion wasn't just a catchphrase. It was about them. In 2014, she worked as a campaign worker for Mark Schauer, who was running for governor of Michigan. She was very committed to Democratic ideals, but her most famous public moment happened when she was only 21 years old. Melanie Gilbert was the youngest person to ever get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1985. The address is 6429 Hollywood Boulevard. Always remember that this wasn't just a kid star. She had already created The Miracle Worker, which won an Emmy in 1979. By the time she was 2, she had already done more than 30 ads. Henry Fonda was in Crest, McDonald's, and Gift Toys, among other places. And her first role off-Broadway was in Asha Medal in 1987, just 2 years after getting her star. The Outer Critics Circle gave her the award for Best New Actor. Melissa Gilbert did something brave when she was 50 years old in January 2015. Her breast implants were taken out. It wasn't just a matter of health. It was a personal act of defiance. The movie business had told her for years how she should look. When she started dating again after getting divorced, the implants were given to her. She felt better after some time, but the surgery had gone well and everything seemed fine at first. She made it clear they looked and felt bad to her. She even made a joke about getting 2 black eyes from Zumba. It was more than that though. She was considering what would happen next. What would happen if she was 80 years old, needed a new hip, and also needed new breast implants? She knew they had a use-by date. She told him no. After taking them off, she felt like she had power over her body again. But getting to that choice wasn't easy. She started Dancing with the Stars in 2012, when she was 48 years old. That's when the pressure to look young was at its highest. She agreed that it was the height of hair extensions, breast implants, Botox, fillers, and spray tans. It wasn't really her. She said she felt like a cartoon when she thought about it now, literally saying that she is like Carrot Top. The Botox made her eyebrows sharp and pointy. She couldn't show how she felt. Her face was still. Even so, she kept looking for youth. She was afraid of getting too old for the parts. She wished to stay Ingenue, the young one, even though she knew it was not possible. Then she saw a picture of herself from a party. It made her shake. That moment and her husband Timothy Busfield's quiet support made her want to change. He loved her just the way she was. There is no rush or expectation. That kind of help gave her room to be herself and breathe. Before all of this, Gilbert had been honest in her 2009 book Prairie Tale. It was real and raw. She wrote about drug abuse, pain, and hiding behind her fame for years. Alcohol was first used as a social crutch, but it quickly turned into a way to deal with problems. After that came drugs. As a child, she was a star who got a lot of attention and felt very alone. She fell down. It was hard to read the stories. She couldn't remember those nights. A lot of pain and broken ties. She tried to shut down, but her kids woke her up in the worst way possible. They asked her not to drink. That got through. Then she turned to 12-step groups. She went to treatment and slowly got better. Her book wasn't just a set of lies. It turned into a sign of life. She told everyone about it, which made other people feel less alone. Later that same year, she made a strong trip back to her roots. In the play Little House on the Prairie, she played Maze. When it came out in Minneapolis in August 2008, it broke all kinds of records at the box office. There were a lot of ticket sales. There were people in every seat. Afterwards, 34 weeks-long tour of 28 cities in the US and Canada. Gilbert did more than act. She also spoke for the tour across the country. The trip was fun, but it did more than that. It came back. The cast worked with Habitat for Humanity to help build homes in every place they went to. They worked with the Seeing Eye as well, which teaches guide dogs. Gilbert didn't go back to Little House because he missed it. It was about finding again. The Simple show's themes of family, honesty, and strength were a lot like her journey. On Dancing with the Stars, that same toughness came out. Even though she came in fifth, her run was amazing. She was with Maxim Churovsky, who was fiery and fierce. They didn't always get along, but there was real spark between them. They were always going somewhere new, so every week felt like a new beginning. She danced even though she was hurt. She got a concussion in April 2012 and could have missed a game, but she only took a day off and kept going. A samba with both Churovsky boys was her best moment. As a joke, one judge said it was like a Chmurovsky sandwich with Gilbert as the cream filling in the middle. She got her best score ever on her last night, which was also her 48th birthday. She was still removed, but she didn't feel sad about it. Instead, she felt proud. She truly meant it when she said, "I'm amazed I made it this far." Then 2024 came along. It had been 50 years since the first episode of Little House on the Prairie aired. A lot of people came to the gathering. There were more than 18,000 people there. Deborah Almanso and Melissa Gilbert took the stage together, but not as Laura and Deborah. Instead, they were friends who had grown up in the public eye. They talked about memories and stories from behind the scenes. They also talked about how the show changed them,